Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this full hour on The World Today. I'm Anne Nwawado right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Here's what's coming up on The World Today. Britain's Supreme Court upholds ruling that UK's Rwanda migrant plan is unlawful. Plus, US President Joe Biden meets with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference in San Francisco. We begin with the UK Supreme Court upholding the ruling that the government of Rwanda's migrant plan is illegal. And this morning, the court ruled that the government's scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda was unlawful, dealing a massive blow to Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's major election pledge on immigration before a vote expected next year. The court unanimously rejected the government's appeal against an earlier ruling that migrants could not be sent to Rwanda because it could not be considered a safe third country. Announcing the court's decision, Court President Robert Reed said the 5 judges involved agreed there were substantial grounds for believing that asylum seekers sent to Rwanda would be at a real risk of refoulement, being sent back to their country of origin.
As I've explained, the legal test which has to be applied in this case is whether there are substantial grounds for believing that asylum seekers sent to Rwanda would be at real risk of refoulement. In the light of the evidence which I have summarized, the Court of Appeal concluded that there were such grounds. We are unanimously of the view that they were entitled to reach that conclusion. Indeed, having been taken through the evidence ourselves, we agree with their conclusion. We accept the Home Secretary's submission that the Rwandan government entered into the agreement in good faith, and that the capacity of the Rwandan system to produce accurate and fair decisions can and will be built up. Nevertheless, asking ourselves whether there were substantial grounds for believing that a real risk of refoulement existed at the relevant time, we have concluded that there were. The changes needed to eliminate the risk of refoulement may be delivered in the future, but they have not been shown to be in place now. The Home Secretary's appeal is therefore dismissed. There is also a cross-appeal on behalf of one of the asylum claimants who argues that the Rwandan policy is in breach of retained EU law, as well as being unlawful for the reasons that I've already explained. We reject that argument on the basis that under an Act of Parliament enacted in 2020, the EU provisions in question ceased to have effect at the end of that year. The cross-appeal is therefore also dismissed.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has put out a statement on the Rwanda ruling, saying the government will consider what steps to take next. It notes that rulings that the principle of sending migrants to a third country is lawful. Rwanda's government, meanwhile, also issued a statement saying that it takes issues with being defined as a territory that is not safe a third country. The statement reads, Rwanda and UK have been working together to ensure the integration of relocated asylum seekers into Rwandan society, adding that throughout the legal process, Rwanda has continued to deliver progress for Rwandans and working together with international partners to help solve African and global challenges.
Prime Minister has rejoined government as Foreign Secretary ourselves against the...
Joining us now is immigration lawyer Dayo Fadina for more on this. Thank you very much for joining us on The World Today.
Oh, thank you very much. And good afternoon to your viewers.
As an immigration lawyer based in the United Kingdom, what do you make of the Supreme Court's ruling effectively striking out government's migrants' plan?
Yes, indeed. It was the right decision by the Supreme Court. I think there's been this protracted dragging on of this matter for the last 18 months. And all through these 18 months of legal tussle and legal arguments, it's always been quite clear that the that the government's this very particular government's policy has been illegal all through. The High Court actually rules that it wasn't. The Court of Appeal then ruled that it was illegal, and the Supreme Court is also now saying the same thing. You say the government should now just pack up this very, wretched policy of, deporting asylum seekers to Rwanda. It's not on. It's now totally run its course. It's more or less like a damn sweep, really. It's not working. It's not going to be working. It's now totally kaput. And I would advise the government to at least just forget about this very policy. It's not going to be working at all. We have a situation whereby the government has now expended so much money on this very particular, deportation of asylum seekers to Rwanda, well over about 140 million. And the policy would never ever have actually been workable. It's not practical, I see no reason why the government would want to continue to push this very particular policy. They should just let it go and look forward to at least coming up with something more concrete and more viable that would be workable and not this very particular policy.
But do you agree with the court's reasoning that the migrants could not be sent to Rwanda because it could not be considered a safe third country? An idea that even the president has reacted to, saying he's not happy with that, what it's being termed as.
Yes, I again totally agree with the president's, that very particular decision, that he's not very particularly confident that any person returned to Rwanda would be in safe hands in Rwanda. I think particularly he stressed the issue of refoulement, where he's of the opinion that it's not particularly clear and even sure that if any person is deported to Rwanda for him to claim asylum, him or her to claim asylum, that they will be safe. He also made reference to a situation similar to what we have on ground in the UK today to do with sending asylum seekers to Rwanda. He made reference to Israel. Israel more or less had that same policy with Rwanda, so I think some years ago. And that very particular policy, failed. It did not work because it turned out that the issue of refoulement was not adhered to at all. People sent from Israel to Rwanda, many of these asylum seekers, by one way or the other, actually were sent back to their countries of origin, where they were being persecuted. So, he drew examples from all this. He also drew another example from the issue of the Afghans, who at one point in time were also sent back to their countries of origin. So, indeed, the president's decision was right and proper, and this should have happened some 18 months ago. I see no reason why the government should continue pushing this very particular policy. It's not going to work at all. And in fact, there's also this rumor going on that they would want to now reconsider that very particular policy, draft a new treaty that they hope and think will be workable with Rwanda. Again, that's not going to work because the issue of refoulement would always be there, even if they now want to change the rules and regulations within the UK so that they would not have to abide by the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. There are so many laws entrenched in domestic law which also frown against refoulement. So, they should just forget about this policy and then move on and at least come up with something more practical, and more realistic.
Well, we know the Rwanda scheme is seen as a central plank for Rishi Sunak's migration policy, but especially as he prepares to face election next year, he looks very unsettled at the moment, frustrated with this new development. What do you think should be his next step in tackling this major setback, as he has said that a next step will be considered?
Well, as I said earlier, whatever next step is to be considered, I don't know what he has in mind really to do with the next step. But in my strong opinion is this. I think he has run out of options. I'm not too sure or clear whether he could actually come up with another policy or something, renewed or revamped, or, I can't see him actually coming up with anything else. It's the Supreme Court has ruled very clearly that right from the beginning, this policy has been illegal. They shouldn't have been backed on this policy at all, because it would never have worked. The reason why the government was going on about the fact that they need to get rid of asylum seekers, coming to the UK, of which indeed the UK is a signatory to the UN Convention to do with asylum with refugees, is just to they were playing to the gallery of the Brits, not the majority of them, who feel that immigration is our problem. Immigration is not truly, immigration and asylum seekers are not truly and really our problem. But they were making out that that's the major problem of the UK just because of the elections coming up next year. Honestly, it won't just work. And the courts have actually made it very clear that it will not work.
Mr. Fadino, but to be fair to the United Kingdom, actually, I mean, any other country will be bothered about migrants and people flooding their countries. But how can migrants be stopped from arriving without permission on the south coast if Britain, maybe arriving Britain on small boats from Europe? Because, I mean, it's becoming a major problem.
Now, when we use the word immigrants flooding the UK or flooding any European country for that matter, we need to indeed go back to the history of immigrants and why these immigrants are actually coming to want to go to many of these countries. We have a situation, right? Take, for instance, a very good example is what's going on in Gaza right now, where you got so many people being bombed to smithereens. You got Israel actually doing what they want with Gaza. You got war situations all over the world, Yemen, what happened in Afghanistan and all that. When these wars are happening, being funded, by the way, by so many of these Western countries, and we now then have so many of these refugees that want to escape the war situation or the persecution of their persons, and they now come to the UK. We now categorize that as immigrants flooding the UK or flooding any European country. Secondly, whether the UK likes it or not, and until they actually opt out, the UK continues to remain a signatory of the UN Convention for the Status of Refugees. And anybody who claims asylum in the UK, because of the fact that the UK is a signatory, they are under that obligation to, make sure that they consider such applications. And if there are people who truly and really have a genuine asylum situation, that should be considered too. So until they indeed opt out of this very particular convention to do with refugees, they cannot renege on their obligations under the UN Convention on Human Rights and the UN Convention to do with refugees.
But this week saw a surprise cabinet reshuffle, ousting braver man, bringing in former Prime Minister David Cameron. How did you receive this news when you heard it?
In all honesty, I was a little bit jittery, and for quite a while right now, I've been quite jittery about Suella Braverman. Our policies, our stance on immigrants, the way she regarded what we are all about as immigrants in the UK, what she wants to do about immigrants, particularly to do with this very particular this Rwandan situation, to do with sending people to Rwanda. I remember there was a time she had this interview, and I cringed where I was sitting, when she was actually telling the interviewer that she's looking forward to the day when planes will be flying straight to Rwanda with immigrants. That's a Home Secretary. A Home Secretary should be measured in her statements, should be quite balanced, and quite judicious in terms of whatever she wants to actually say or do. But she didn't really have that kind of balance or measurement at all. And besides, I was reading the letter she wrote to Rishi Sunak, was it yesterday? A very vitriolic attack on the Prime Minister, accusing him of betrayal and all the rest of it. she was a member of government. There's what's called collegiate collective responsibility in government. She had a choice for the last 1 year. If she did not like the policies of Rishi Sunak, she could have resigned. She didn't until she was sacked. It was after she was sacked that she now started, blemishing and abusing the prime minister. So honestly, good riddance. That's what I would say as far as she's concerned. Then regarding David Cameron, well, Rishi Sunak's point is the fact that he's coming to government with his wealth of experience as prime minister, the kind of connections he has, the kind of, he's quite measured and not too extreme when it comes to views and all that. That was the reason why Rishi Sunak stated that he brought him back to government. But my strong feeling about that is a person who resigned about 6-7 years ago because of the fact that he failed in his Brexit campaign. He wanted the UK to remain in the UK, but he failed at that point. For that kind of person to be brought back into government, it's marks of desperation on the part of the Prime Minister. Whether it's going to be working for him for next year when eventually he calls an election is yet to be seen. It's not a here nor there, but honestly, I can't see much difference really when it gets to a point where they're going to be facing the electorate next year. I wish him all the best, but I can't see anything actually coming out of all this.
Very much. Immigration lawyer in the United Kingdom, Dayo Fadino, thanks a lot for your contribution on The World Today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. A pleasure.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is making his first visit to the United States in 6 years as he attends the annual summit of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. It will also be the first time Mr. Xi will be meeting U.S. President Joe Biden. Diplomats hope that their meeting will reduce the friction in what many have seen as the world's most dangerous rivalry. Upon his arrival in Washington on Tuesday, President Xi waved atop a passenger staircase attached to his plane and then descended to a U.S. delegation set to welcome him. One of the speeches we have heard from the APEC summit is that from the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken during his meeting with the Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa and South Korean Foreign Minister Jin Park in San Francisco. Mr. Blinken said there was so much work to do, adding that regional and global issues like Russia's invasion of Ukraine, conflicts in the Middle East and security implications of the DPRK are all on the agenda for that summit. The U.S. has chosen the theme, Creating a Resilient and Sustainable Future for All, for APEC 2023. APEC accounts for about 62% of global GDP and almost half of the global trade. It is a unique in grouping economies rather than nations, allowing participation of Chinese-ruled Hong Kong and democratically governed Taiwan, which China claims as its own. It does not, though, include India, which is the world's most populous country.
Looking around the world, there is so much work for us to do together. We currently face
Let's bring in Washington correspondent. Apologize for that. Maria Barrett is on now. Hello, Maria.
Hello, Anne.
All right. There's a lot of buzz surrounding the Chinese president attending the summit in the U.S. Will he also be having a one-on-one with President Joe Biden, considering he's meeting him for the first time? And is there any possibility of discussions that will center around U.S.-China relations?
Yes, as expected, they will have a one-on-one meeting. in San Francisco. They're stating an undisclosed location, but even though they have not yet confirmed it, it is expected. In this meeting, as you stated, some of the long time since it's been since the two have met. It's been about 2 years since a formal meeting. They were together about a year ago, but did not have a one-on-one meeting. And so I think as you look at all that has happened between the U.S. and China, especially as things have escalated when you talk about trade relations and also some of the thoughts around humanitarian rights when you look at Taiwan. And so those are going to be some of the areas that the president is going to focus on. President Biden is going to look at areas of trade relations. We know that the U.S. and the Chinese economy are so tightly knit together, and that when we see challenges with the Chinese market, we also sometimes see challenges in the U.S. market and vice versa. So those are some of the issues that will be addressed, along with I would venture that the president will likely bring up humanitarian pieces, even though he might have that a much subtle conversation and the underpinning of his larger conversation around trade relations between the U.S. and China.
Maria, we all know that China is a massive force in Asia. How do you think the summit benefits them?
China knows, I think at this time, some of all that's going on in the world. We're in the midst of 2 world wars. We're looking at some of the impacts this is having on Europe. Obviously, it's impacting the entire globe. And so when you look at the U.S.'s position and some of their leadership as far as foreign aid, both to Ukraine and also when you look at the Israel and Hamas issue. So that, I think, is going to be vitally important for China to kind of figure out where they and the U.S. can come to some sort of agreement in level playing field to try to bring back some of the economy. As you've mentioned, China being such a large player in the Asian market and also knowing where the U.S. sits with the global market as well.
We recall Secretary of State Antony Blinken actually told his Japanese and South Korean Foreign Minister Jin Park that there is so much work to be done. What is he referring to here?
I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that U.S. and China relations have definitely been challenged over the last few years. And so some of where the U.S. and China was many years ago just is not there. And so I think there's some building to be done, and that's really what he's referring to as some of the building blocks, especially as we're in the midst of many challenges, not to mention climate change challenges. There's a host of pieces that the world is facing right now that China and the U.S. have not at all addressed, and due to the strain in the relationship, I think he's hopeful that we'll be able to dig out of some of that to be able to begin to build a foundation to be partners across the world, whether or not they're getting to a partnership, but at least to be able to have conversation and address some issues.
Yeah, sometimes it's just all talk and very little action. What is the plan to ensure that this meeting is not just another talk shop?
That's some of what I know that I think looking at how long it's been since there's been a one-on-one meeting, understanding where the country is, understanding where the economies are, understanding where the world is. I think that they don't have much choice but to do a little bit more than talking. I think that that's something that I think both presidents are aware of, which is why they are deciding to talk in an undisclosed location in San Francisco.
Welcome back. Let's head to Brazil now, where red alerts have been issued for almost 3,000 towns and cities across the country, which have been experiencing an unprecedented heat wave. Municipal authorities are saying that Rio de Janeiro recorded 42.5 on Sunday. That's a record for November, and high humidity on Tuesday meant that it felt also like 58.5 degrees Celsius. More than 100 million people have been affected by this heat, which is expected to last until at least Friday this week. Officials have attributed it to the El Nino phenomenon and the climate change. The National Institute of Meteorology also reported the city of Sao Paulo saw an average temperature of 37.3 Celsius on Tuesday afternoon. The heat wave, which comes more than 1 month before the beginning of the summer in the southern hemisphere, has seen Brazil's energy consumption increase to record levels as people are trying to keep themselves cool. It's over 60 years since James Bond first hit the screens, and to celebrate, the Royal Mint in the United Kingdom have a new range of coins which are dedicated to popular secret agents. Well, the latest 007 range, which was unveiled today, features designs marking the 6 decades of James Bond. But the first coin in the collection shows actor Sean Connery's Bond flying an aircraft nicknamed Little Nelly in 1967's You Only Live Twice. But the designs for coins celebrating the other decades are yet to be announced. And over the years, the sought-after role of James Bond has been played by actors including Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan, and most recently Daniel Craig. The new billion coins are available on iOS and gold and silver, and they're minted to the highest specifications, confirmed Andrew Dickey, Director of Precious Metals at the Royal Mint, had all this to say about those coins. London's Royal Botanical Gardens in Kew debuted its annual Christmas lights show that happened on Tuesday in preparation for the festive season. Brand new displays include 3-meter-high illuminated flowers, cascading lights suspended from the tree canopy, and one of the longest light tunnels that has ever featured at the Christmas event there. When asked if there have been any memorable moments at light display over the years, Dara Bastra said, in his words, "We normally get a big proposal every year. Sometimes we're asked to assist in the surprise, so that's always good fun." Christmas at Kew's run from today, Wednesday, until January the 7th, 2024.
With 39 nights to go.
Well, this year, as every year, we've worked really hard to create something brand new and fresh here at Kew Gardens. We're 11 years this year, and so every year we're looking for new and exciting things for all our visitors to enjoy. So we've a new route this year, we've 22 installations, and we have 8 installations that are brand new, never seen before here in the UK. It's very creative, as you can well imagine. The light show is designed, and then we take each individual installation and work really carefully. Some of them kind of write themselves. You'll see the difference between something spectacular like the Palm House finale. It deserves big and vibrant music, whereas if you go down further on the trail and you go into the Fire Garden, for example, in front of the Temper House, it's much more serene, quieter, more ecclesiastical type music. So yeah, the installations themselves nearly help us assist in choosing what music goes where. It would probably be, well, I would say when we're talking about tunnels there, we have our Christmas Cathedral, and it's been here 11 years, so every single year is quite momentous. We normally get a big proposal every year. Sometimes we're asked to help out, to assist in the surprise, so that's always good fun to be part of somebody's special announcement like that.
And from Christmas in the UK to Christmas in US, the 22nd annual Christmas at the Grove Tree Lighting celebration has taken place in Los Angeles, the United States of America. The Grove, a renowned retail destination, turned into a winter wonderland with family, friends, activities, live music, a visit from Santa Claus and his sleigh, and of course the highlight of the evening, which is the lighting of a 100-foot wide Christmas tree. Guests also enjoyed watching fake snowfall and fireworks show.
It's a celebration. It's time to come together. It's up to you. Have a good time.
It's already giving me a Christmas feel, and I'm sure it's one of the happiest moments for almost everyone. On that note, we end the World's Today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu.